Hello, everybody. My name is Paavo Ritala. I'm Professor of Strategy and Innovation from LUT Business School, Lappeenranta, Finland. And I'm going to share my perspectives on the topic of towards circular and regenerative industries. I've been teaching sustainable strategy since 2010 or so, and we've seen the movement of discussion from sustainable business and corporate social responsibility more and more towards circular economy and more recently regenerative economy. And this happens in both business to consumer industries and also business to business settings. And as you can see from the picture, also the forestry industry and all of the industries that are related to natural resources and raw materials are very much involved in these discussions about circularity and regenerativity. So that's today's topic. Why are we talking about circular economy and regenerative economy? It's because we have these wicked problems or grand challenges. So a normal definition of a wicked problem is that it's so complex, involves so many stakeholders, and there are multiple different interpretations of how such a problem could be solved, that they are really difficult. That's why we call them wicked problems. So definitely a wicked problem is CO2 emissions. We focused on CO2 emissions for a long time. We've understood things about global warming so long ago that it's even strange that we haven't been able to resolve the thing. But that's why it's a wicked problem. It's so ingrained in the current economy and also the economies in the past. How we've grown, how we've come to create value has done a lot together with fossil fuel consumption and production. So it's a wicked problem. Similar problem relates to our consumption and the way how we use raw materials. So we create a lot of waste. Instead of using our resources in the most effective way and reusing them, a lot of our resources and materials, once they're consumed, they unfortunately go to waste. It's also a wicked problem because oftentimes we don't have a clear system or consensus globally what to do about these things, aside from many good solutions. But as I will discuss later, we haven't been able to fully resolve the problem. And then thirdly, biodiversity loss. You might have, or for sure you have heard about biodiversity and why it's important. And you have heard about biodiversity loss. That is also a wicked problem because all we have is the biosphere, and we all live in the same planet. So when we start losing different aspects of the biosphere and we start losing in biodiversity, we get into different types of difficulties and even those that we couldn't anticipate. But again, we have multiple interpretations what to do about this issue, how urgent it is, who should do something about it, and so on. So it's another wicked problem. Another thing which has been a little bit problematic is that for a long time we are focused on carbon emissions or CO2 emissions. And this has created sort of carbon tunnel vision, as you can see in this slide. And focusing on carbon emissions is great, and it's necessary, and it's as I told, it's one of the wicked problems of our time. But at the same time, we might fall into the trap of tunnel vision. We focus only on carbon emission, and then, for instance, we overlook biodiversity, or we overlook inequality globally, or we overlook water crisis, or we don't care too much about overconsumption. We only focus on minimizing carbon emissions and the related technologies. So if we do that, we are not able to resolve the whole problem, because all of these things are interconnected and they are part of the same transition for the better or worse. So I would say whenever we are developing our industrial models or our economic models to be more sustainable, we can't only focus on carbon. We should focus on carbon, but we need to focus on many other things at the same time. So when you focus on many things at the same time. You are thinking in terms of systems. You will adopt systems thinking lens. And when we want to innovate businesses using a systems lens, it means that we will move from insular component level innovation into integrated innovation, more socio-technical than only technical, more systemic than insular. And the very piecemeal solutions, insular solutions, all of those that focus on operational optimization are, of course, very important. And if we can do major improvements in operational optimization, it means that we can perhaps scale those efficiencies, especially if we are running a big industrial operation, optimizing something, focusing on product innovation, that might be really good and definitely something to do. But then as we move into more integrated, more systemic innovations, we start to think about differently that, okay, can we perhaps redesign how we produce things, or can we redesign how we consume things? Can we redesign the supply chain practices, or what kind of business ecosystem we are building? Can we create a different model for production and consumption system altogether? And as we move there, we have to do organizational transformations. Sometimes we talk about business model innovation or changing the revenue models. When we go towards more system building, we go to reframing of, for instance, what's the role of a certain industry in society, or what's the role of a certain company in the society, and how different organizations can come together to create a change. So in order to tackle these type of wicked problems, we need both insular optimization type of solutions, but we also need these more systems-based solutions. So the question then is, what are the systems-based solutions? How to work with those? First approach, and the approach that you probably have heard of, is the circular economy. So it's already a relatively old concept as such. There were discussions about circular product design and cradle to cradle already some time ago. And in the last 10 years or a bit more, within those years, we have started to talk about circular economy. It was made popular by Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And in this picture, we have the very famous butterfly diagram. The main message being that when we extract or take raw materials or renewable materials, we should use them as long as possible. If it's not possible to use them anymore, we should share them with others. We should try to maintain the value of those resources. We should redistribute or reuse those resources, or lastly, we should recycle those resources. Or alternatively, we should use some of those excess resources to energy production or so. In any way, or at any stage, we should avoid having those resources to go to waste or to landfill or trashed somewhere in the nature. So circular economy means that resources and materials circulate as long as possible, and we maximize the resource value, we extend the resource value and materials value as far as possible. There's a very neat way how to view circular economy, which I have used together with my colleagues, and it was made popular by Nancy Boken and the research group with the concept of flows and loops. So there are 3 strategies in circular economy how to extend and increase resource value. The first one is narrowing of the resource flows. So there you minimize resource use per product. For instance, creating more efficient manufacturing practices or lightweighting products, creating more with less resources and energy. That's relatively simple, and that's actually something that every company has been doing always. There is so clear economic logic in using less resources. It's also less costly typically, not always, but typically. Then we have slowing of the resource flows. So this means that we are using the same resources, but we are taking longer time before they become not as valuable, or we throw them away, or they go somewhere else. So we can extend the useful life of products in different ways, and also avoid overconsumption. And then finally, we have the closing of the resource flows. So basically, this would mean recycling, primary, secondary recycling in different ways. So a combination of narrowing of the flows, slowing of the flows, and closing of the flows would constitute the repertoire of circular economy solutions available for different companies. To take an example from the forestry and plywood and veneer industries, narrowing of the loop would mean minimizing waste, resource, and materials use in different ways. If we want to take the circular systems approach, it would mean doing more with less. So it means we use different types of technology, like the software solution mentioned here, or different machinery that are just created more efficient. Little by little, we make these operational optimization improvements. So we can use less raw material, for instance, wood or water or energy, to create more. So basically doing more with less is something that companies should strive to do all the time. And this is the basic innovation cycle. Every year we come up with ways to use or to create more value out of the raw materials that we already have. Then slowing of the loop, staying in the same industrial examples, is, for instance, doing long-lasting designs, making the end products last in different ways. This is an example from the consumer industry, but the same would work in B2B context. So then we need to make product design choices that make things reconfigurable or reusable, or anyway, making sure that whatever we produce, it's going to stay in its valuable use as long as possible. And there are different design choices to do that. There are different types to create better lasting products. There's a lot of technology involved, and there's also a lot of consumption and use cases involved. And firms innovate a lot in this space, as we see in the picture. This is from B2C industry. And finally, closing of the loop would mean recycling and reusing materials as far as it's possible. And this is an example from IKEA's particle board production. So circular systems approach here is use it again and again if possible. And this requires companies to come up with different take-back mechanisms. So especially if you want to remanufacture or reproduce something out of material that went to waste, there need to be different mechanisms to collect those. And there are different revenue models to do that, and there are different incentive models to do that. But the main principle is that whatever goes to waste, it's an input to a new process, and waste becomes, or excess resource becomes value in some new process, or it might be even in the same process as I demonstrate in this example. IKEA is saying that big part of the particle board is based on recycled wood, and it could initially also be based on recycled wood or scrap wood that comes from other production. So as far as possible, use it again and again, and so on, close the loop. So there are also ways to sort of supercharge this type of circular business models or circular industrial opportunities. And some companies are doing a lot with digital technologies and digital platforms. This is an example from the Netherlands. Excess Materials Exchange uses these type of solutions, such as resources passport, tracking and tracing, valuation and matchmaking. And their idea is that they can do this to all industrial materials, regardless of the origin of the materials, or regardless of the category of the materials. That, of course, requires a lot of technology, a lot of matching, and a lot of experimenting. And it's not a big operation yet. But the idea of using platform economy and digital platforms to scale circular solutions in different industrial settings, it's a good idea. And many industries, many companies are experimenting with these types or other solutions. In Finland, there is, for instance, Materiaalitori, which has a little bit of the same idea as we have here. But this example perhaps has a bit more of these additional digital technologies that could be used to sort of facilitate circular economy practices in different industries. There are also potential challenges with sustainable and circular business models. And in this picture, you see the main problem. So the challenge is that even if we recycle more and more, we still, in the net calculation, we are still creating more waste than before. There are these challenges, such as rebound effects. We become efficient, but because we become efficient, we end up producing and consuming more. So we become more efficient, yet we become more extractive in the grander scheme of things because of that efficiency. And we also have to remember that material decays. So material might lose its value. We can't always close the loop. We can't always upcycle. So then the question is that what can we do? The Circularity Gap report also shows the same problem. So circular economy has become a megatrend for sure. We talk more about circular economy than ever, and companies are coming up with circular economy strategies. But still, the overall circularity, overall recycling of all materials is still declining. And it's because of the reason that I demonstrated. So because we are doing more in an increasing pace, and our circularity efforts can't keep that pace because global consumption continues to accelerate, as you see in the picture. So the alternative solution would be regenerative economy, which is a bit more future-oriented way to think about what do we do with resources and materials. Regenerative business has been defined to enhance, thrive through the health of social ecological systems in a co-evolutionary process, or alternatively, restoration of natural habitats that have been previously overexploited. The idea being that we could do something net positive with our industries, with our businesses, and with our societies, because so far it hasn't been net positive. The development has been net negative. So, for instance, we have companies such as Stora Enso here mentioned having the goal to reach a net positive impact on biodiversity. And more companies are jumping in this bandwagon. And we are also seeing legislation and regulation and policy going a bit more towards biodiversity and this type of thinking. So included in regenerative thinking is that we move from risk mitigation towards net zero. So we don't do harm, towards net positive and restoration. And finally, building the capacity of ecological and social systems to self-sustain life. This is how nature works anyway. And this is how we should help the nature to keep on sustaining itself over the course of time. So we would move from degenerative logics towards regenerative. And it's for sure not easy. And we need a lot of policy, not a lot of new business practices. So I'm going to finish by suggesting a couple of examples. So we should go for regenerative design principles. So whenever we design a new material or new product category or new production process, we should think that how can we include those types of raw materials that help the place where we take those materials to renew itself. So we shouldn't extract, but we should use something that when it reaches the end of its life, it will go to the cycle of materials and regenerate itself, like with the lignin-based glues in plywood. We should think about net positive practices and policies. So a Finnish example, for instance, is this järkisärki. Särki is a roach. It's a fish that when you take this fish out of the lakes, it's sort of a fish that taken out, there is a positive result to the other fishes in the fishery and to the overall balance of the nature. So sort of doing that is net positive for those ecological environments. And policy metrics could follow. And finally, we have to think about that, can we improve the ecosystem services that the natural ecosystems allow us to use over the longer term? Can we manage the materials, can we manage the resources and natural ecosystems in a way that we can keep on using them industrially, because we will have to run our industries in some way, but so that this regeneration is possible. And we are seeing more and more initiatives towards this direction. So finally, I would like to end with the future outlook. There are startups like Origin by Ocean, which is a Finnish startup, that are thinking these nature-positive regenerative business models and business practices. Like Origin by Ocean is taking the harmful algae out of the oceans, and by doing that, they are actually improving the biosphere. They are improving those ecological conditions and still using those materials that they take, which are harmful at the moment, as raw materials to their business. Plastic Whale is a little bit different initiative, and this is an NGO, but I want to highlight a couple of examples. So these types of examples are popping up every day, and they show us the way how to think in a net positive or nature positive way about industrial futures. And I think the big industries are gradually following these types of logics and also the circular business models. That's all from me. Thank you for listening.